Unbelievable twist. Black judge reveals her identity, exposing a shocking career end for accuser. The courtroom buzzed with energy, every eye fixed on Judge Clara Moore. To the townsfolk of Maplewood, she was the embodiment of fairness, a black woman who'd fought her way to the bench, fueled by a dream and her mother's teachings of honesty. Now, as she looked upon the jury, the stakes were higher than ever. Just hours before, a scandal had erupted, accusations of impropriety swirling around her like a storm cloud. How had it come to this? Memories flooded Clara's mind, her father working late shifts, her mother gathering her siblings round the table, instilling values in them with every meal. Those sacrifices, they pushed her forward, carrying the weight of history on her shoulders. But now the whispers were loud, raucous. Had the community forgotten who she was? As the trial of Tom Hargrove heated up, Clara wore her robe like armor. She had dedicated every ounce of strength to uphold truth and justice. And now she felt the eyes of the town questioning her. Did they really think she could betray all she stood for? The heart-wrenching thought squeezed her chest like a vice. She flashed back to her father, whose own battles for respect still echoed in her soul. In the stillness, her mother's voice soothed her, reminders of unity swirling around her heart. Clara, focus, she'd say, on who you are and what you represent. But as the townsfolk began to divide into factions, Clara felt isolated. Former supporters would pass her in the grocery store, glances filled with doubt. To know that the love she once felt for her community was being replaced by suspicion, it brought tears to her eyes. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The air charged as people spoke amongst themselves, their gossip a knife twisting in her gut. Clara's resolve hardened. She wouldn't bow out quietly. She had too much at stake. Yet, she felt a gnawing uncertainty. The courtroom where she had once thrived now felt hostile. Would they still see her as the proud daughter of Vietnam, hard work and honesty? Moments of vulnerability flickered in her memory, dreams reignited by her struggles. Then, as secrets began to unravel, a chilling connection emerged, a tie between her and Tom Hargrove that twisted the knife deeper. They had crossed paths long before this trial, and now their shared past threatened to unravel her entire career. Breath caught in her throat, Clara faced a chilling decision. Reveal her truth, her family's story, a showcase of perseverance, or remain silent while the community she loved turned its back. As she steeled herself against the tide of prejudice, she felt the strength of her ancestors envelop her. She would not be a victim of misinformation or rumor. The echoes of her family's legacy pulsed within her. It was time to stand tall, the outcome be damned. With the courtroom waiting, silence engulfed the room. Clara took a deep breath, gathering her courage. Would she be able to withstand the barrage of public scrutiny, or would this be the fight that cost her everything? Would she reclaim her narrative, or let it slip away into whispers of doubt? The community held its breath, and so did she, feeling the weight of the world as she prepared to confront her fate. Clara's heart raced as she stood before the jury, every pair of eyes in the room fixed on her. She could feel the weight of their expectations, their doubts, and their fears. A vague memory of her mother's calm, steady eyes flitted through her mind. Clara, always be true to yourself, she once whispered in the half-light of their kitchen. Those words felt more vital than ever in that moment. She needed to find her voice, to speak with clarity and strength. Yet, the thought of revealing her history with Tom Hargrove gnawed at her. It wasn't just a matter of her own career at stake. It was about the community she called home and the trust they had once placed in her. What would they think of the judge who had personal ties to the man in the defendant's seat? The anxious whispers swirled like autumn leaves in a storm. Gathering her thoughts, Clara stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, her voice rang clear, though it trembled ever so slightly. This case isn't just about Tom Hargrove or the accusations against me. It is about justice and truth, and the integrity with which we conduct ourselves in this very court. She paused, searching the faces staring back at her. Some looked perplexed, while others seemed hardened, set against her. Taking a deep breath, she pressed on. I am not a perfect person, nor do I claim to be. But what I do claim is my commitment to this community and the values we share. Clara's words seemed to hang in the air, but she couldn't feel their impact yet. The metaphorical knife in her back twisted again. Years ago, I knew Tom Hargrove, she admitted, her voice firm now. Not as an enemy or an antagonist, but as a friend whose actions have led us to this moment of reckoning. Gasps rippled through the room. The tension was palpable. Eyes widened as the revelation sank in. Clara's heart raced as she pressed forward, sensing the shift. I know what it feels like to carry the burden of past choices. I know what it is to seek redemption, she continued. I am proud of where I come from, and I refuse to let this moment define me or let fear erode the justice that is needed here. As murmurs grew louder, she noticed some jurors leaning forward, intrigued, while others shook their heads in disbelief. Clara's resolve surged within her. If she could inspire even a flicker of doubt about the accusations against her, it would be worth the risk of exposing her vulnerabilities. I stand here as a reflection of our shared experiences of struggle, persistence, and community, Clara declared, her eyes meeting each juror's gaze in turn. I urge you to look beyond the rumors and the noise. I ask you to see me for who I am, not as a target for your fear or misconceptions. With that, Clara took a step back, her heart pounding like a drum. The courtroom remained abuzz with chatter, unsure of how to respond. Clara felt the rush of adrenaline as the weight of the moment settled around her. As her eyes flitted over the jurors, she caught sight of a familiar figure in the audience. It was her mother. Clara's heart skipped a beat. The proud smile that lit her mother's face filled her with warmth, a stark contrast to the chill that permeated the courtroom. But just as Clara found a moment of solace, she was jolted back by a loud bang, a gavel striking the desk. The courtroom leader had called for order, but the tension was far from resolved. Clara's stomach dropped. Everything depended on the community's response to her truth. Would they embrace her vulnerability or condemn her? Would they stand united with her in this fight for justice? Or would they succumb to division? The weight of uncertainty pressed down on her as she felt the eyes of Maplewood on her, waiting for the next move. And in that moment, Clara knew something new was at stake. Not just her career, but the heart of a community united or fractured by fear of the unknown. Her heart raced again. She had taken a stand, but now, would anyone stand with her? The hushed courtroom felt suffocating as Clara glanced around, her pulse quickening again. The murmurs softened into a tense silence, just waiting for the next sound, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. She noticed the way some jurors' brows furrowed, gears turning in their minds, and others sat back, arms crossed, their judgment already set. We all have a past, Clara said, her thoughts racing as she adjusted her position. But it's how we decide to move forward that defines us. She looked toward the judge's bench, where every gavel strike felt like a countdown, a reminder that time was running out. Tom shifted in his seat beside his attorney. Clara felt his presence like a shadow, heavy and unyielding. For years, her history with him was a hard truth she had buried. It was simpler that way. But now, like a dam bursting, all those old memories surfaced. The laughter, the late-night talks, the moments that seemed innocent, now poisoned by the weight of accusation. Did he even remember what they shared? Did it mean anything to him now? Members of the jury, I am not here to defend him, but I won't let my past with him cloud my judgment or yours, she said, delivering each word with unyielding conviction. This isn't a trial about friendships gone wrong. It is about the principles of justice, truth, and fairness. The air felt electric, swirling, filled with tension, and Clara leaned in to reach them. Justice doesn't have a favorite color or a selective background. It should be blind, but it requires us to be brave. Her thoughts drifted to her mother, the embodiment of strength, and she found herself gripping the podium. It was time for courage, and not just for herself, but for everyone who ever felt defined by their past mistakes. Not long ago, I faced a stranger's judgment, Clara continued, her voice softening just a touch. I walked into a room filled with people who only knew the surface, who didn't know the struggle and the choices that brought me to this moment. And perhaps some of you know that feeling too. She saw a few heads nod. Connection was building. Each offender of silence marked a step closer to understanding. Clara's mind raced through all the faces, her neighbors, her friends. We must let the past serve us, not define us. Can we look each other in the eye and still question one another based on our flaws? Suddenly, the courtroom door creaked open, and a newcomer stepped inside. Clara's heart surged as she recognized him, the local reporter known for breaking stories that could shift the currents of any community debate. He was a familiar presence, a light in the tension, eager to peel back layers of intrigue. She couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. Didn't he know? Didn't he see the humanity weaved into these lives, into hers? As his eyes searched the room, a flicker of recognition passed over his face, but he remained silent, and this only amplified the tension. Everyone was holding their breath. Will we let fear dictate our actions? Clara's voice rang out, stronger than before, cutting through the anxiety like a knife. We have the power to create a change. Let us not be shackled by yesterday's choices. Let us step together toward tomorrow. The jury shifted uncomfortably. A few jurors exchanged glances, trying to gauge one another's reactions. Clara felt their uncertainty and uncertainty. What would it take to push through the surface noise and reach their hearts? As she darted her gaze back to her mother, her eyes brimming with tears of pride and worry, she thought she saw a flicker of something profound in her mother's gaze. Solidarity, perhaps? An unspoken agreement that maybe, just maybe, they could overcome this together. With her heart thundering, Clara took a final breath and said, I stand before you, ready to make things right, not just for myself, but for this community, for all of us. The gavel fell again, signaling the next phase. A flicker of tension washed over the audience, and Clara couldn't shake off the thought, had she reached them? Just as the whispers began to stir again, she sensed that unraveling. Threads were weaving into something new. As the focus shifted back onto the jury, a sense of dread hung in the air, but she knew she had to bridge this gap. What revelation was just waiting to break the silence? Who among them was hiding more than just their judgment? Clara's breath caught. The moment of truth loomed closer, and she realized the stakes were far higher than she could have imagined. How far would she have to go to find the support she needed? Would anyone be ready to stand beside her when the real challenge came crashing down? Clara's fingers trembled slightly as she steadied herself at the podium, the weight of the moment pressing down like an anchor. She watched the jury, studying their faces, hoping to find a hint of understanding, of empathy. But all she saw was a mix of doubt and judgment, and with each passing second, the air thickened with uncertainty. Justice is not just a concept, it's a living, breathing thing, Clara said, her voice gaining an edge. And it's time we treat it as such. If only her words could pierce through the haze of doubt that clouded the courtroom. If only they could ignite a spark of kindness where there had been none. As the murmur of the audience faded, she noticed the reporter's keen gaze fixed on her. For a brief moment, it felt like a lifeline. He had the power to share her story beyond these walls. There was a sense of urgency in his expression, something she couldn't quite place. Was it surprise? Was it understanding? Or had he seen something in her story that could shift the narrative entirely? Then, the judge shifted, calling the room to order. Clara's heart raced. What next? Would the jury see her truth? Would they recognize that this trial was not just about Tom, but about the choices that led people into dark places and how they fought their way back into the light? Suddenly, the judge spoke up. We will now hear from the defense. Clara's throat tightened. Tom's attorney stood, adjusting his glasses, and for a moment, Clara saw the man behind the lawyer, a figure so focused on winning that he seemed oblivious to the impact of his words. Members of the jury, he began, you must not be swayed by emotional appeals. This is about facts. The evidence you will hear today will show. He trailed off as the door swung open once more. Every head turned, and Clara's heart raced when she saw who entered next, an unexpected figure. One of the community's most respected leaders, a voice she had never expected to hear in this context. Clara's eyes widened. What were they doing here? I must interrupt, the figure stated, stepping forward with a confidence that startled everyone, including the judge. I have new information regarding the case. The room fell silent, intrigue rippling through the spectators. Clara's heart pounded. What could be so significant that it warranted this interruption? Did this person have information that could swing the trial, reshaping accusations, and absolving Tom? Or could it expose truths none of them were ready to face? As the leader continued, their words were steady but grave. What you do not know is that this case is built upon a series of hidden truths and lies. Clara's breath caught. She exchanged glances with Tom, uncertainty now bubbling between them. Was he aware of any hidden truths? Did they all remain oblivious to what lay beneath the surface of this case and their lives? The very foundation of the accusations. The figure paused, the weight of their words hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst, is more tangled than you can imagine. I know this because I am not just a witness. I have a history that connects us all. Clara's mind raced. What was unfolding? The once monotonous courtroom had transformed into a throbbing epicenter of intrigue. Secrets, history, stakes, everything felt intertwined in a way that was almost cinematic. As the murmurs erupted again, Clara sensed eyes darting around the room, searching for answers, digging into the shadows cast by accusations. She felt a cool wave of anxiety wash over her. Was she ready to face whatever truths lay ahead? Whatever revelations would emerge from this community's past? The weight of the moment hung in the atmosphere, and Clara could hardly breathe. She realized she had been grasping for control in a situation where control had slipped away long ago. What other secrets were buried deep, waiting to be unearthed? With a mix of fear and fierce determination, she knew this was only the beginning. What skeletons lay buried that could shake the very fabric of this town? And who else would step forward to add to the unfolding tale? Clara instinctively took a step closer to the edge of the podium, ready to listen, ready to fight. The urgency thickened, and she couldn't help but wonder. Would she be able to confront the truth when it finally revealed itself? Or would the revelations prove too much for her to bear? Time was ticking, and the stakes had just skyrocketed. The room was electric as the leader's words echoed in the charged silence. Clara felt her heart racing, adrenaline flooding her system. She could see the jury, their expressions shifting from skepticism to curiosity. "Please, go on," the judge said, clearly caught off guard but intrigued. This was a moment rife with potential. Each word spoken could turn the tide. Clara leaned in, her breath quickening. This case, the leader began again, is not merely about the actions of one individual. It is a reflection of a community grappling with its own demons. Their gaze swept across the courtroom, seeming to capture each observer in a net of connection. It was as if they were revealing a hidden mirror, one that reflected every face back to itself. Behind every accusation lies a narrative, a history that is often painful. The leader continued, their voice steady like an anchor in the storm. Tom is not just a defendant. He symbolizes something much larger. He represents the struggles of people trying to rise above their circumstances. Clara glanced at Tom, who sat beside her, tense yet hopeful. The way his jaw clenched indicated a whirlwind of emotions. Did he realize the implications of what was unfolding? Did he understand that this moment might be the key to unlocking his truth? Years ago, the leader said, I too faced accusations that shaped my path. I made choices based on fear, based on the needs of a community that often turns a blind eye to its suffering members. Their eyes glistened with what looked like unspoken regret. I lost my way, but I learned that truth often lies beneath layers of fear and silence. Clara felt a swell of empathy. This wasn't just about Tom anymore. It resonated with every heart in that room. Each person connected by shared experiences and struggles. She was reminded of her own battles, of the love she felt for the town, even for those who had wronged her. Today, the leader announced, raising their voice, I stand before you not only as a witness, but as someone who has chosen to shed those layers. If we do not confront our pasts, we are bound to repeat them. The audience was rapt, breaths collectively held in anticipation. Clara's pulse pounded in her ears, racing as she wondered where this revelation would lead them. Would it unite them in understanding? Or would it create deeper rifts in an already fractured community? The leader took a deep breath. And so, I implore you, members of the jury, look beyond the surface. Look for the humanity in each individual. We've all been shaped by our experiences. As they spoke, Clara felt a glimmer of hope spark inside her. Maybe this could be the catalyst for change. Maybe it could open doors and perspectives that had been previously locked shut. leading them to healing. But just as her heart began to swell with optimism, the defense attorney's voice cut through the air, sharp and probing. What about the evidence? What can you provide to substantiate these claims? The room tensed again. Clara winced. Would their powerful words be enough to sway the jury, or would the harsh pull of facts ground them back to the underlying story? I can provide context, the leader answered calmly. But what I have is a reflection of the environment we created together. If you choose to listen, then you'll hear more than just accusations. You'll hear truths in the voices of the past. Clara felt her strength renewing. In that moment, she realized that whatever happened in that courtroom, this was about a deeper fight. It was about unity, about breaking the cycle of blame. As the tension hung heavy in the air, Clara's gaze shifted to the reporter, who scribbled furiously. What story would he tell? What shadows would he illuminate with the truth being unveiled right before them? And as the leader sought to delve into even deeper layers of this tangled web, Clara's heart raced with excitement and fear. What would the community's response be? Would they take this leap into the unknown with her? Or would they retreat, clinging to their safety nets? The answers lay just beyond reach, and Clara could hardly breathe as she prepared herself for the next wave of revelations. This was only the beginning. What other truths remained hidden, waiting for the right moment to make their entrance? Stay tuned, the leader concluded, leaving a palpable silence before the chaos of murmurs resumed. Clara's mind raced. Change was in sight, but how many were ready to embrace it? The murmur of voices in the courtroom barely started to die down when the leader's steady presence seemed to ignite an unexpected spark. Clara could feel the energy in the air shifting, alive and crackling with possibilities. It was palpable. She held her breath, hoping the breakthrough wouldn't shatter. Before the defense interrogates our past, the leader stated, I want to call your attention to a crucial player in this narrative. Their gaze landed on Judge Collins, who sat poised and serious on the bench. Clara noticed the slight spark of curiosity in the judge's eyes, as if she was anticipating some revelation herself. The leader took a step closer to the edge of the witness stand, drawing the jury's attention fully. Judge Collins, would you share your experience with us? Perhaps your own reflection on what justice means in our community? The judge blinked, visibly taken aback. Clara held her breath as silence enveloped the room. The tension escalated, thickening the atmosphere, as all eyes turned to Judge Collins. Finally, she turned in her seat. Clara had always seen her as the impartial arbiter, someone whose stern disposition hid a wealth of wisdom. But now, she seemed more human, more vulnerable. Your Honor? The leader coaxed gently, an invitation that felt both daring and respectful. Taking a moment, Judge Collins adjusted her glasses and cleared her throat. Justice, it is not merely a matter of judging right and wrong, she began, her voice strong but infused with emotion. It's about understanding the whole picture. It's about compassion when there's pain, and seeking the deeper truths beneath the surface. Clara's heart raced. She could see the wheels turning in the judge's mind, as if this moment required her to bear more than just legal knowledge. I was born here, Judge Collins continued. The room fell silent again, hanging on her every word. This community has watched me grow. It has shaped me. Many forget that even those with authority can feel the weight of doubt, the push of bias, and the intense pressure to uphold a narrative that may not always serve justice. Clara sensed something shifting within the room. The judge was revealing pieces of her self-experiences that made her more than just a figure of law. It was a moment of authenticity, a stepping stone toward bridging divides. I have faced my own struggles, Judge Collins admitted, her voice steady. Struggles similar to those of the people who stand at this very bench. I understand how the scars of the past can cloud our vision and bind our actions. With every word, Clara felt a hope blossom. Could this openness inspire the community to reconsider their own prejudices? To kindle empathy rather than fuel division? But, just as the energy in the room began to shift towards something lighter, the defense attorney interrupted. Your Honor, with all due respect, he said, his tone laced with skepticism. You are a judge overseeing this trial. We need facts, concrete evidence. This personal narrative is not what we need right now. The atmosphere crackled with tension again, and Clara held her breath, wondering how the judge would react to such a blatant dismissal of her truth. Would she retreat into her role, or would she stand firm in her authenticity? Perhaps, Judge Collins retorted evenly. Context is just as valuable as the facts. The audience collectively leaned forward, captivated by her resolve. Clara sensed a moment of reckoning. Deep down, she knew this was more than just a trial, it was a chance for transformation. As the murmurs swelled and voices started to mix again, Clara felt a rush of determination. She wanted to rise alongside the judge, to infuse the courtroom with renewed strength. They were at a pivotal point, and she wanted to be part of the change. But just then, another figure in the courtroom, an older woman with a familiar face, entered. Clara recognized her instantly. Mrs. Simmons, Tom's former teacher. What was she doing here? Was she here to support Tom, or to offer yet another piece of the puzzle? Clara's heart raced once more. The reality of the moment was dizzying. This trial was unfolding in ways she never imagined, and somewhere deep inside, she wondered how many others were holding their own secrets, their own truths that could reshape everything. As anticipation gripped her, Clara couldn't help but wonder what story did Mrs. Simmons carry, and how would it impact Tom's fate. Clara's gaze locked onto Mrs. Simmons as the older woman made her way down the aisle of the courtroom, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. The air felt charged, a strange mix of confusion and curiosity, as everyone turned their attention toward the new arrival. Who knew what she would bring into this fraught room? Clara had watched Mrs. Simmons guide her students with wisdom and care, and now, in this defining moment, she wondered if the same woman would choose to speak up for Tom. As Mrs. Simmons reached the front, she hesitated, her usually confident demeanor now flickering with uncertainty. Judge Collins nodded at her, gesturing for her to approach. The judge was taking a risk with every move she made. Clara could sense it. The stakes were razor high. Mrs. Simmons, you're here as a witness? The leader asked gently, but Clara could hear the underlying tension. Everyone was on edge. Why, yes, the teacher stammered, regaining her composure. I want to speak about Tom, and what he means to our community. Clara's heart skipped a beat. This was it. Mrs. Simmons held the key to shedding light on Tom's character. But would it be enough? Taking a deep breath, Mrs. Simmons continued, I have taught in this community for over 20 years. I've seen the challenges our kids face. Tom is one of those kids. He is bright, full of promise. He has dreams and potential. When I found out he was accused, I felt a deep pain. I never thought I'd see such a talented kid caught in chains. The audience shifted, whispers swirling like leaves in the wind. Clara noticed a few jurors leaning in, caught up in Mrs. Simmons' words. I know that not everyone will believe me, she said, her voice steadying as she met the eyes of the jurors. But I spent time with him. I saw him work hard, tackling subjects that others abandoned. Something feels off about this accusation. I believe Tom to be innocent. The defense attorney, still simmering with skepticism, rose again. And what do you base this belief on, Mrs. Simmons? A bond formed in the classroom does not erase the severity of the charges presented. Mrs. Simmons stood her ground. It's more than just our relationship. It's the values I instilled in my students. To trust. To stand up for each other. Tom is not the kind of person to make such choices. I know that. I can feel it deep in my gut. Clara watched as the judge's expression softened. This was the genuine testimony she hoped for. One that came from the heart. With each heartbeat, Clara felt the tides shifting, the atmosphere lightening with a glimmer of hope, but the defense wasn't defeated yet. If Tom's character is truly so impeccable, why do we have witnesses in opposition? The community is divided on this issue. Because, Mrs. Simmons interjected, passion igniting her words, the truth is often hidden behind fear. I've seen it happen too many times in our schools. Our neighbors turn their backs on each other instead of standing together. This narrative must change. Clara's heart swelled. Though the courtroom had witnessed tension, now, an undeniable wave of unity flowed through the room. Mrs. Simmons' declaration resonated deep within Clara. It was a call to arms, a plea for the truth to emerge. Yet just as the words settled, casting a light of hope, another figure got up, a man in the back, visibly agitated. You don't know everything. You don't know what he did, he shouted, and Clara winced. The courtroom fell into chaos, murmurs igniting into a firestorm of accusations and defense. Clara felt her stomach twist. This was turning into madness. Order, Judge Collins commanded, her voice rising above the tumult. If we are to find justice, we must listen. Everyone deserves a voice. Clara's breath hitched. This roller coaster of emotions was far from over. What would come next? Would the truth finally surface? Or was the community destined to remain split, with stories and secrets swirling just out of reach? As the uproar continued, Clara knew in her gut that the real test was yet to come. Could they confront the darkness together, or would Tom stand alone in the light? The chaos in the courtroom felt like a live wire buzzing through the air. Clara could sense the fear escalating, how each person in the room wrestled with their own emotions. Inside her, hope battled against despair. How could they sort through the noise, the accusations that pierced through the weight of Mrs. Simmons' testimony? Judge Collins slammed her gavel, calling for order again, but the whispers only intensified. Clara turned, trying to catch a glimpse of the man who shouted. He had stormed to the front, his face twisted in anger. Clara's stomach churned, but as she watched, he took a deep breath and addressed the court once more. Tom isn't innocent. He manipulated all of us. You can't see it. His voice cracked as if each word tore at his own heart. Enough. Judge Collins interjected, her voice full of authority. Do you have evidence to support your claims, sir? If not, I suggest you sit down. The man faltered, glancing around as if realizing he was losing control. I know people who talked. You're all too blind to reality. He's a threat. Clara's heart raced. She could feel the tension in the air, each pulse reflected in the faces of the jurors. Mrs. Simmons stepped forward again, her courage bolstered by the truth she had fought so hard to illuminate. That's not who Tom is, she insisted, her tone unwavering. But Clara noted the tremor behind her words. But before anyone could respond, a new figure strode into the courtroom. Clara blinked in disbelief. It was Ms. Johnson, the school principal, her expression grave, yet carrying an air of self-possession. She was not a witness on the stand, but rather a figure of respect in their community. Your Honor, I request to address the courtroom, she said, her voice cutting through the murmur. Judge Collins nodded, intrigued. Ms. Johnson approached the front, the eyes of everyone in the courtroom glued to her. I've been listening to all of this, she began, leaning into an authority that seemed to draw everyone closer. And I need to make something clear. We work tirelessly to create an environment where our children feel safe to learn and grow. Tom is one of those children, and I can attest to his character firsthand. Clara could feel the wave of agreement ripple through the jurors, but the accuser scoffed. What do you know? You're just defending your own. Ms. Johnson's expression hardened. No, I'm standing for truth. I know Tom, and I've seen his struggles. I refuse to let fear distort who he is. The tension shifted in the room, the crowd leaning in, hanging on her every word. Clara's heart was racing as Ms. Johnson continued. You see, it's easy to jump to conclusions when we're scared. But as administrators, as educators, we have to dive deeper. We have to look at the whole picture. Every word dripped with conviction. Clara could feel her hope blossoming again, yet doubt cast shadows in her mind. Would this testimony be enough? With the chaos still buzzing around them, she felt an unshakable tension, a feeling that the real truth was about to break through. Suddenly, the courtroom door swung open again. Another unexpected visitor? Clara's chest tightened. What if this new figure brought even more confusion? The lack of clarity began to unsettle her again, as every eye turned to see who had arrived. Who could it be, and how would they tip the balance of this fraught moment? Clara found herself wondering if any truth could unite them all, or if this case would lead them further down the path of division and despair. The courtroom door swung wide, and Clara held her breath. The figure who stepped through sent a ripple of disbelief through the packed room. It was Rosalind, the local lawyer everyone knew but few understood. Her reputation turned heads. She had carved a path as a fierce advocate for justice. Today, however, the tension in the air felt different. Something about her stride seemed loaded with purpose. Excuse me, Rosalind said, her voice calm yet firm. She walked down the aisle, determination in her steps. I need to address the court regarding this case, as well as the man's accusations. Clara could feel the collective intake of breath. The murmurs of confusion filled the room like an almost palpable cloud. Judge Collins glanced at Rosalind, her eyebrows raised, before nodding. Proceed. she said, watching attentively. I've been following this case closely, Rosalind continued, her gaze sweeping the anxious crowd before landing on the prosecutor. And I can't stay silent any longer. The truth is bigger than this courtroom. Clara felt her heart race with anticipation. Rosalind's presence carried weight, and it wasn't just her stature in the community. There was something electric about the way she spoke, as if she was about to flip the very premise of the trial on its head. What are you suggesting? The angry man at the front barked, still bristling from Ms. Johnson's previous remarks. His face was twisted in offense, and bodies in the audience shifted uneasily. Rosalind paused, her green eyes locking onto his as she absorbed the ire. What I want to clarify is the context behind the accusations against Tom. There has been a rush to judgment based on fear, but fear clouds the truth. More whispers erupted. Clara felt each rustle like static brushing against her skin. Rosalind took a deep breath, her expression steely as she pressed on. The truth is that the very man sitting before us had a history with Tom that speaks volumes. You all know the community, well, how we often cover for one another's mistakes to protect ourselves. Gasps echoed around the room. Clara's stomach nodded. She couldn't fathom where this would lead. The room hung thick with the tension of unspoken secrets. Let me remind you that this individual was also a student at our school, a student who, in private, has shared stories of his own troubles with anger, misdirection, and fear. Rosalind's voice softened momentarily, stories he has never shared with the court. Clara took a moment to absorb the implication. Had this man, fueled by his own past, placed blame on Tom to deflect attention from himself? The thought shook her. It's essential that we ask ourselves, Rosalind continued, her voice rising in authority, is it Tom who poses the threat? Or is it those of us blinded by our own vulnerabilities? With each word, the prosecutor's features darkened, and the tension escalated, crackling in the air. Judge Collins looked troubled, but her gavel remained still. The courtroom was alive with questions hanging in the silence. Every eye turned to the angry man, who seemed to shrink under Rosalind's revelation. His bravado now faltering, Clara caught signs of uncertainty flitting across his face. But just as the moment began to shift, the courtroom doors burst open a third time. Clara's heart sank. Who could possibly arrive now? As expectations surged and tension tightened, she felt the uncertainty creeping back in, a stark contrast to the flicker of hope ignited by Rosalind. Would this new arrival deliver a final blow to the courtroom drama, or could they be a harbinger of unforeseen turmoil? Clara's pulse quickened with the realization that they were standing on a precipice, and one more revelation could send everything spiraling out of control. As the door swung open, all eyes turned, and the energy in the room snapped like a taut wire. An elderly woman stepped inside, frail but resolute, her presence both unexpected and commanding. Clara's breath caught. This was Mary, the town's unofficial historian, a figure whose wisdom and stories had shaped countless conversations over the years. Clara had always admired her, but now she felt an unfamiliar sense of dread. What could Mary possibly contribute at this moment? Mary took a deep breath, scanning the courtroom. Your Honor, may I speak? She asked, her voice steady despite her age. Judge Collins nodded. Thank you, Your Honor, Mary continued, her eyes sparkling with strength. I stand before you because this case isn't just about one man. It's about the very fabric of our community and our shared history. Clara felt a flicker of hope mixed with anxiety. Could Mary shed light on the underlying truths that had long remained hidden? I remember decades of stories, Mary began, gathering the attention of every person in the room. The stories of our town, the struggles and triumphs that bind us together. It brings to mind a saying I've carried throughout my life. We are not just the sum of our past. We are the potential of our future. Clara sensed the jurors leaning in, curiosity piqued. Tom Hargrove and I have a history, Mary stated, and Clara could feel the wave of gasps ripple through the crowd. He may not know this, but his grandfather once stood beside mine during a time of turbulence. Their friendship, although strained, taught us to rise above our mistakes. This legacy is deeper than any accusation. The courtroom fell into a hush as Mary's words took root. I understand the fears and doubts swirling around us, she continued, her voice softer but just as determined. Misunderstanding can breed fear, which can breed judgment. Tom represents the possibilities of youth, the choices they make, the burdens they inherit. Can we not instead foster dialogue and understanding rather than accusations and division? Clara felt tears welling in her eyes, an overwhelming sense of pride washing over her. This was not just about Tom. It was about their community confronting its own ghosts, collectively finding strength in vulnerability. Fear drives us apart, Mary said, her voice now laced with urgency. But honesty can bind us back together. She glanced at Tom, who sat, stunned. The weight of the moment wasn't lost on Clara. This was the turning point. Yes, we have a history of discomfort. Yes, mistakes have been made. But we can choose to rewrite the narrative. Mary's eyes sparkled with fierce encouragement. Do not let the shadows of the past distort your vision of the future. The murmurs in the crowd began to quiet, the emotions softening like sunlight filtering through storm clouds. Clara sensed the heaviness slowly lifting. One by one, the jurors began to nod, absorbing Mary's wisdom, drawn into the collective possibility of healing. Justice is not just about finding a verdict, Mary articulated. It's about forging a path towards understanding, towards loving our neighbors instead of demonizing them. Enough of using fear as our compass. The audience sat captivated, the raw truth settling deeply within their hearts, stirring something long buried. Let us lift each other up, not cast blame. Mary concluded, her eyes gleaming with hope. The silence that followed felt different. It was charged with the promise of unity. Clara turned to look at Tom, whose eyes glistened with unshed tears. He felt the weight of history, the echoes of sacrifice and resilience, alive not only in him, but resonating in everyone sitting in that room. Perhaps this was the moment of reckoning they all needed. Judge Collins took a deep breath, the weight of the atmosphere settling around her. Thank you, Mary. Your testimony sheds new light on our path forward. The tension that once gripped the audience had transformed into a collective desire to understand and to move beyond. Clara stepped back to the podium, a fire igniting within her, also needing to speak. Thank you, Mary, Clara said, her voice strong and clear. We stand here today not just as jurors or witnesses, but as a community given the opportunity to confront our truths and work towards a future of connection. She paused, letting the weight of her words resonate. Let us not shy away from our past, but rather embrace it. I am proud of my journey, of where I've come from, and who I strive to be. Together, we have the capacity to rise above. Let us not allow the shadows of doubt to cloud our judgment any longer. Let us create a legacy of understanding. The courtroom erupted in hushed murmurs, faces turning toward one another. Clara could see the glimmer of connection sparking between people, hearts softening as walls slowly crumbled. Together, Clara continued, we can illustrate the true essence of justice, not blind, but profoundly aware and deeply hopeful. As Clara finished her statement, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. Together, they could rise above the accusations, offering the community a chance at transformation. The souls of Maplewood were awakening, and with each heartbeat, they could feel it, their stories interwoven, a tapestry of resilience. Clara took a breath, feeling the energy shift, the vibrant pulse of hope surrounding her. She no longer felt alone, and in that moment, she knew their journey was just beginning. This is the moment to unite, to rise together, to embrace our shared stories. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.